Hi everybody and welcome back to Hearthstone Global Games Week 9. And here is Mr. 3-0, who we want to be called, but he's actually just Mr. 30 these days. It's Sottle.
Wow. Lorinda coming straight out with the age jokes. That is a dangerous precedent.
Oh, it's a stats joke.
I'll just start noting down some age shots. You carry on with the intro.
So, carrying on with the intro while Sottle just does his thing. Romania versus Thailand is going to be a really important match. It's going to be huge. We've watched Romania go 0-3 and be in a position where they thought they were out, barring a load of miracles. Well, the miracles have started to line up. And barring, we're just going to ignore Peru. If Peru win 3-0, 3-0, they have every chance of going through. Barring that, if Romania win 3-0 or 3-1 today, they will go through. If they lose, then Thailand will go through instead.
Yep, so this is certainly, for me, the first, essentially head-to-head eliminator that I've had to do on stream. I don't know in the last couple of weeks if you've come across anything that was the same kind of thing, but for me, this is where it's really getting down to the nitty-gritty, and this is one of the most exciting matchups I've had the chance to cast on an HGG broadcast because it is do or die for both teams. Romania needing to pick up a 3-1 or better win. So, of course, as soon as you see Thailand get to that 2 games, you will see the celebration go off a little bit prematurely, more than likely, because you best believe both of these teams have done all that maths as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult for Romania to be worthy of a surprise this time. Last time they needed to win 3-0 or 3-1 as well to stay in it, and so they top-loaded their lineup, which meant that they were going to win 3-0 or 3-1 if it all panned out. Well, Thailand know that Romania have got to do that again, so they might be able to actually take some educated guesses on how to do their lineup here.
Team lineups coming out, of course, Romania, led by RDU, who has most recently ticked off the last question mark on his resume. The only thing you could previously hold against RDU is that he hadn't done it at HCT. Right. Now that is not an issue. He's qualified for Spring Championship, cementing him as one of competitive Hearthstone's most accomplished players. But the rest of Team Romania, Lorinda, no slouches either.
No, they've had various results at DreamHacks throughout the ages. Tracky Style won PGL Tavern Tales 2016, beating Moody in the final, who's the other player on that list.
There's those two covered. Nice.
Hannibal just went, he won the other DreamHack in Romania, the one that I can't pronounce the name of. It's that place there, pointing.
Oh, Cluj? Yeah.
Sure. There we go. Mm-hmm. There we go. Sottle knows how to say names because he's been everywhere.
I have, it's true. Thailand, a place that I haven't been to, though. Pateo was a player that we encountered in APAC. I believe he was on stream for one of mine and Raven's games. The amount of casting that we've done has all become a little bit of a blur, though, recently, so I apologize if that's not the case. But Pateo came out with a 4-2 record in the end, I believe. Dropped prematurely because his tiebreakers wouldn't let him get through a 5-2 result. But still, when you're coming up against, as you like to say, the top 64 players in your region and you're going for a 4-2 record, that is solid going.
Here is a look at Romania. Don't usually talk about these anymore, but let's just take in some of the scenes of some of these lovely countries that aren't the UK.
Wow, what's wrong with the UK, Lorinda?
You go back there sometime and find out.
That's true. My fondness for the UK has been accentuated by the 5 consecutive weeks I've spent outside of it. But look at that from Thailand. I feel like if we were just putting players through based on the quality of their intro reel, then Thailand would be topping this group by an absolute mile. That was a beautiful scene. Somewhere
I would like to visit, along with probably the other 46 non-UK countries at some point as well.
Is that how many? I don't think that's right.
Are there not 48 countries in this?
Oh, in this, I see what you're going with.
Yeah. Sorry, not in the world. There's not just, we haven't got every country in the world in this, as much as we would like to.
How can there be 48 countries in the world when there's only 7 million people?
Wow. Thanks.
So, HGG format, as we regain some element of sanity and get back on track. If you're not familiar with it, these matchups will be played horizontally as you see them, so Tracky Style versus another C, and then all the way down. Each player has 2 classes available to them. They then play out a standard best-of-5 format. First team to 3 wins. But crucially, Romania have to do that in this particular matchup to qualify for Stage 2 with a 3-1 or better score.
Yeah, and you can see there Romania's last decks are likely to just be Warlock and probably Rogue, you would imagine, just making sure that the decks that are least played are down there at the bottom because they're not really important to them.
So you were mentioning that, was it last week that Romania played their last game or the week before?
It was one of those 2 weeks.
Good call. You mentioned that they front-loaded their lineup because they were trying to push for a 3-0 or better. Like, which decks in particular were they front-loading with in that situation?
So it was all aggro. I believe it was Pirates, aggro, Druid, and AN other, whatever that would be.
Makes sense.
Obvious when I think of it. Yeah. But yeah, they just went straight up. RDU had just qualified
like
for...
a Paladin, I imagine.
Yeah, it was. Okay. So RDU had just qualified for HCT. It was that week, and they just went basically with his lineup again. And looks like that's entirely possible they'll go with it yet again here today.
Yeah, if we're following the pattern, then that is very, very possible yet again, right? Warrior has been selected in the first game, meaning Warrior versus Mage is going to be our matchup. And if you look down, we can see the Druid and Paladin potentially coming out from Hannibal's and RDU as follow-ups, trying to push through those 3 power snowball decks in the metagame to a 3-0 victory. But as you pointed out in the intro, Lorinda, that does open them up to an element of predictability if Thailand get a read on that strategy, which is a legitimate strategy because they do have to weight their wins to winning by blowout wherever possible. If Thailand can get a read on that, then they can potentially queue up some counters. But Mage coming into a Warrior here, yes, Mage is a resilient deck with ice blocks and various removal tools, but it's not the ideal deck that you'd want to be queuing into a Pirate Warrior.
It certainly isn't, and Thailand are 0-3 with Mages in this tournament so far. So definitely not the position they want to be in at the start with this matchup. It'd be interesting to see what they do pull out, though, because like you say, or what we've kept saying, they know exactly what they're likely to be up against in this one, we think.
Yep, so it's going to be tracky style leading out here, and if you aren't familiar with the communication rules here, you'll see that Romania have chosen to gather together at RDU's house there to play in person, but Thailand will still be communicating by whatever method they see fit. So this is not a 3-on-1 matchup. Thailand will have, or all teams in this tournament have all of their players available to them to collaborate, to talk through, to argue even over various plays, and that's honestly where a lot of the big make or break moments have come from. We've seen teams underperform, and then we've interviewed them and said, yeah, we didn't really feel like our communication was on point. We've seen teams overperform, Italy being the big shining example, which comes in no small part from the fact that Italy are all teammates prior to HGG. So their ability to collaborate on decks, talk through plays, that was already there. So it's all going to come down to teamwork, as it quite often does in the Hearthstone Global games.
Whoa.
And the bait and switch has come out, and straight away, I want to know where Romania stand on keeping Quest versus Unknown Mage, because I think this is one of the most interesting dilemmas in the game right now.
Yeah, something Falcone and I talked about at length. We didn't necessarily agree. Where do you stand?
I do not like keeping the Quest against Unknown Mage, but it depends on the deck list. And this is where, if I was at HCT, I would have Romania's 30-card deck list in front of me, and I could look for cards like Dirty Rat and Harrison Jones. If you have those cards in your deck, if you're playing against a Gunter Mage, you can then Dirty Rat their Alexstrasza, Antonidas, Medivh, you can Harrison their Atiesh, and then simply outlast them becomes a realistic possibility. When you don't have those cards in your deck, you're not going to be able to do that. So outlast them isn't a realistic possibility. You have to try and burn them with Die Insect hero powers.
Right.
Therefore, you keep the Quest. However, a lot of games you will see the Quest get played, and that becomes the signal to your Mage opponent to just start pulling the trigger on burn. So you see the Warrior go down in a couple of turns. I've just talked for about 2 minutes straight on the subject of whether you keep this Quest or not, and still didn't reach a definitive conclusion. So you can see why I say it's one of the most interesting dilemmas in the game.
And we do see a Dirty Rat there as well, ready to go. So Romania going with that. And this also has greater implications down the line for Shanghai, because RDU is probably not known as a player for mixing things up that much when it comes on the line. He'll tend to play the decks he believes are the best decks, tend to make that fairly obvious what he feels, give or take. He's not, he's not completely crazy. He doesn't reveal all of his stuff in advance. And now players in Shanghai are going to be like, well, what's RDU going to bring there as well as here today if he can mix it up for a game this big?
If you speak to RDU, you will say, he will tell you that probably his weakness as a Hearthstone player is that he's not a big innovator. Yeah. He's not a big deck builder. He's not the best at coming up with creative lineups. What he is a perfecter. He can tinker 1 or 2 cards in deck lists to come up with what he thinks is a more optimal version. And when the best decks are established, when the meta is stabilized, Radu will take those best decks and he will perfect his play with those decks.
Let's see how this goes for him. It'll be interesting to see if he does pull this deck out again in the coming weeks as well.
Pull his what out, sorry?
His Arcanologist has entered play for another say. Never know which way his name goes. Starting to get some board presence, try and get that chip damage in early before the taunts hit the board.
Wow, Dirty Rat and Harrison in this deck, and the quest is still being kept. That's very, very interesting to me. That's not the caster speak interesting, where you just say interesting when you mean I disagree with that and think it was bad. That's just interesting as in I do find this whole discussion incredibly interesting.
That's very interesting, Sottle.
Thanks.
All right, Thailand not having a particularly tempo-orientated start now, which is going to allow Romania to look good for keeping the quest most likely. If they can keep the quest, give up that early card and not be punished for the early loss, then that's going to look like a good keep, at least on this occasion.
Only Dirty Rats in hand as Curve plays here for taunts, and if Dirty Rat were to come out and pull an Antonidas or just another huge minion like Medivh or Alexstrasza, there's no execute in hand to be able to finish the job on that front. So just going to pass up the Dirty Rat for now. This is a big point. A lot of people on ladder will just windmill slam their Dirty Rats and hope for the best. Right. But the more considered players will reduce the impact of RNG outcomes like Dirty Rat by making sure that they have the tools to deal with any eventuality.
So what made it such a good card, I feel, because the players who think they're good will hold it too long. There's a break point with Dirty Rat. Like people who don't really know what they're doing with the deck just slam it out on turn 2.
Sure.
And then the next level of learning is, I know I'm going to keep it in my hand, and then they'll hold on to it too long and not time it well. Mm-hmm. The really truly great players know exactly when to slam it on the board and what they're going to do with it.
Right. Mana Worm being picked up now does have some board initiative, but Fiery War Axe is in play. Not the best time to drop Mana Worm, but with all these spells in hand, it might just be worth just playing Mana Worm down here, maybe firing off Glyph, maybe firing off Ice Barrier, just taking that 2 damage to face, but looks like they're going to hold on to it. And the question is what you're going to get this Fiery War Axe used on that isn't your Mana Worm in this situation. You're going to have to get through it at some point.
Also the option there to Mana Worm and just Frostbolt face, make it so that next turn it's large.
Oof.
You got 2 Frostbolts, you've got time.
That's a big boy play right there.
And then it's going to hit you twice, because they're going to take down your 4/3 Mana Worm with their face. Might have got through an extra 7 or 8 damage.
Sure.
Okay. Time for Romania to actually do something. They're on 0 out of 7 with the quests. Mage hasn't done much to them. Time to get the board developed.
Volcanic Potion not going to be a great card in this matchup. That's something that you tech in towards the Aggro Druids, the Murloc Paladins, the Pirate Warriors, and the like. It can sometimes do some work just if the Taunt Warrior has found a bit of board presence and managed to trade out a few of your minions with their taunts. Quite often, due to the high health, low attack nature of taunt minions, they'll be sticking around with 2 or 3 extra health left on them, but that's a very niche situation. Volcanic Potion much rather be various other cards in this matchup. So that's just a big whiff for them on the tech choices, and it's a big whiff for them in terms of board development right now. And Thailand are honestly just looking at this hand like, well, maybe we're just kind of all in on the Medivh plan at this point. But with Harrison and 2 Dirty Rats in hand, the Medivh plan is not looking particularly likely.
Yeah, and I wonder how much Thailand can actually read into some of that already, given the Warrior hasn't even been playing the most basic of taunts. They'll have some idea of the cards that are in the hand of Romania. And I won't be surprised to see another Volcanic Potion, by the way. This is the obvious tech for playing against Romania. You play 2 sometimes anyway.
Yeah, you're right.
So there's probably another Volcanic Potion waiting to clutter up this hand in a minute as well.
I was just going to give a nod to the fact that the Mana Worm discussion we had on the previous turn, another reason, of course, to hold on to the Mana Worm over the long term is to play around cards like Dirty Rat, so they don't nail your Alexstrasza and the like. But now on the following turn, Thailand have just chosen to play out the Mana Worm here into the Fiery War Axe. Anyway, they have buffed it to a 3/3 on this occasion, where it would have been a 2/3 on the previous turn. But kind of hard to get into the mindset of Thailand here and trying to figure out what their long-term game plan is.
I mean, I think one of the things there was just how do we get these cards out of our hand? They were up to 10 cards in hand, had to do something.
Right.
And looking across that list there, a lot of those cards, I mean, Glyph doesn't get rid of a card.
Boom!
Ouch.
Hold that. And look at the timing. What did I say? Dirty Rat hitting the board. They didn't have clean answers. Execute was drawn this turn, and Romania said, all right, we pull the trigger. Anything that comes out here, be it Antonidas, be it Medivh, be it Alexstrasza, it's a clean slam. Execute. We get our second taunt of the game on the board. It was perfect timing from Romania. They got rewarded for it. Thailand could have played around that by holding onto the Mana Worm in their hand, chose not to. So again, decisions from both sides, even though, you know, Dirty Rat is a much maligned card from me as much as anybody in terms of how much of an impact it can have on deciding games. That was very much decision-based on that outcome from both sides.
Yeah, choosing. I mean, decision-based over a period of turns as well. They could have decisioned. They could have done it on turn 2 as well as on the turn they actually chose to do it. And now into a more traditional Taunt Warrior situation where they start giving up cards on the basis of getting back that card advantage later when they get the hero power going. How long do you, and this is another reason for considering throwing the quest away, how long do you actually just want to be able to armor up against Mage?
That is really the big point that I was, you know, one of the points that I was getting at in the intro is that, yes, the quest is lovely, and it feels like, you know, you need some kind of win condition against this deck a lot of the time. But so many times, that turn where Sulfuras gets equipped and they start swinging, you can look at this kind of hand from another Z right now, where there's a Frostbolt, a Firelands Portal, and a Glyph that has a high chance of discovering Burn, and then suddenly you can just jam Alexstrasza, you probably still have an Ice Block in play, and you're setting up a win condition for yourself that way. So even if Romania complete the quest, the very act of playing Sulfuras often gives a win condition to your opponent that wasn't there beforehand.
All right, this 7/6 is going to get some damage done, but it's only going to take down some minions. And Thailand just not got much they can do right now. It looks like a Firelands turn, but they can't ping. Nothing really adds up to what they want it to right now.
I mean, this Venture Co is a big win for them because it's a huge minion, 7/6, and the average Firelands Portal is 5.5. So you got a huge boost in stats over the average, and it's just not really representing a downside right now. They have one minion in hand, which is a Doomsayer they wouldn't be playing anyway.
Right.
So they've just got a free, massive high roll 7/6 in this situation.
Free damage coming in as well for later in the game. This is going to delay Romania's ability to be able to use their hero power, or to be able to use the Sulfuras. There's a lot of damage accumulated. From where Romania is at, it probably feels like more damage than we can see as well. They'll be seeing fireballs and goodness knows what hanging out in that hand.
Never mind, the Doomsayer is going to hit the board here. They're just going to try and find a tempo turn here so they can get a clean Firelands Portal off to the face next turn, most likely, and just, you know, back up the burn damage with the minion presence. He knows, Thailand know. Nice wrap. Nice wrap, buddy. Thailand know that Curator being played on the previous turn means that Primordial Drake was in hand 100% of the time. Now, you saw the sequencing, and this is where the communication will come into play. Initially, that 7/6 was pointed at the 2/6, because one person on the team said, let's play around Primordial Drake.
Right.
Let's not trade it into the 4/6, because then he can just Drake me. And someone else on the team will have said, well, let's just trade it into the 2/6 and play Doomsayer.
Which sets up the Firelands Portal to face, more damage, and get something out of it. And as a bonus, they got the second Dirty Rat out of the way.
That's actually a big win for them. The second Dirty Rat coming down and whiffing. There will be an Alexstrasza in this deck. We don't know if there will be an Archmage Antonidas, but just that second Dirty Rat being gone means that Alexstrasza is now guaranteed to be able to come down and deal, you know, upwards of 11 damage in this position, depending on how much additional armor Romania gain from this point.
That is as close to a 4/5.5 minion as you are going to get in this game. That's pretty much Mr. Average, which is absolutely fine.
Works for Raven.
Wow. How come you always insult the guy who's not sat at the desk?
Whoa, 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 whoa. When I'm casting with Raven, I very much insult the guy that's...
Oh, yeah, you do. It's fine.
The common theme is not where the person is sitting, it's just where is Raven? Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I've got to work with him when he's upset.
He's a delight. I love casting with Raven.
I know. All right, Romania, nothing actually works out particularly nicely for them here. The Drake is like the obvious play, and there was no backup play that made any sense. They just got on with it and put it on the board.
Yeah, and this is what Thailand have spent basically the last 2 turns trying to mitigate. Not only did they not want the Primordial Drake to come down because it took care of a lot of their board state, They also didn't want the Primordial Drake to hit the board because they just don't have a nice way to deal with a 4-8.
Yeah.
They want their minions to be able to connect with face. They don't want to be spending burn to be removing a 4-8. And a 4-8 that sticks to the board can go a long way to accelerating the Quest Warrior's clock, because that's what it comes down to. If it's going to be a Sulfuras game, it's about the clock. How many turns is it going to take the Quest Warrior to get through the ice blocks? And is that number of turns greater or less than the number of turns Thailand can burn Romania out in?
And that number of turns that they can burn Romania out in is coming down pretty quickly. There's 24 damage in Thailand's hand now. They only need to do 26, throw in a couple of pings, and that's the numbers worked out. So Romania are not going to be in position where they can play Sulfuras anytime soon, even if they complete the quest. Wow.
5-5 stealth, another great pickup for them. No brawl in hand. Ghoul Sleep with the fishes is one short of taking care of it as well. So that's more like pretty much banker damage for Thailand in this spot. And Romania currently on 5 out of 7, I believe. So the Armorsmith and Hatchling in hand are the quest completion locked up. But as I've spent so much time this game saying, timing the point at which you want to activate your quest and play Sulfuras is really, really key. If you're even going on the plan of keeping the quest in the first place, which of course Romania have done here, but still they have to make themselves comfortable that they're not just going to get burned down if they go for the Sulfuras.
Right, and that means they're going to have to work out how they want to use these two varieties of Armorsmith that's currently in their hands. Do they want to go for a short-term gain now, get a bit on the board, gain a bit of armor, gain a card maybe with an Acolyte of Pain at the same time? Or do they want to use these after they've got Sulfuras down to get a lot of gain in the long term? Maybe they can get the Ali Armorsmith to stick or at least eat a fireball. And they need to work out how quickly they want to complete Sulfuras.
I like minion this turn, so there's no harm in just getting the quest done, which is what's going to happen here.
Right.
The timing is just when you play the actual Sulfuras weapon itself. That's the big decision point. So this occupies the board the best. You've seen 2 Firelands portals being used, one of which was from Glyph. And so that's the clean way to deal with minions, mostly out of the way. There is a 3rd Firelands portal hanging around in the deck. But if Fireballs and Pyroblasts and Frostbolts are being thrown at your minions, that's actually a win for you to be able to go onwards with Sulfuras later in the game. So just contesting board honestly with minions here is a big upside. But now the long-term planning has to start to come out here from Romania is about whether they're going to try and outlast for a few turns, whether they're going to just observe and reflect for a couple of turns and just see where they are in terms of life total and armor total versus the total damage remaining in Thailand's deck, or whether they just want to go for the throat and just push Sulfuras damage.
Yeah, they can get an awful lot of armor with that future planning, using Armorsmith, Ravaging Ghoul, Sleep with the Fishes, Acolyte of Pain. They can almost refuel their hand while they're doing it.
Yep.
That's somewhere in the region of 8 to 10 armor they can probably bank on later, as long as nothing too bad happens with the tempo on the board at the moment.
Metro going in the deck, and they could have just recreated a stealthed 5-1 there. That 5-3 regains stealth after it kills a minion, but a 5-1 in stealth is not much cop against a Taunt Warrior. They have so many ways to be able to eliminate that.
And just to point out as well, it won't be a problem for now. Don't worry about it. I'm going to just ignore what I was going to say. It was absolute garbage. We'll carry on.
Oh, I'm dying to hear it, Lil.
I'll tell you later.
All right.
Oh my goodness. Right, Stonehill Defender.
I'm just trying to work out what it would have been now. I'm like trying to see if I can guess the mistake that Neil made mentally.
You've done that enough times in the past. So. Second Direhorn puts a lot of health not only on the board but also purifies the top decks to help them get more taunt. But really, at some point very soon, taunt is not going to be what it's about anymore. It's going to be about can you not die to the direct burn face damage.
Sleep with the Fishes now will take care of this 5-3. And looks like Acolyte Pain is just going to be dropped on the board because, again, if this is not to be allowed to draw multiple cards on the following turn with the Ravaging Ghoul, that's damage that needs to be thrown at it. Unless there's a Meteor or a Flame Strike that's going to be used on this board, that is likely damage that needs to be fired at the Acolyte of Pain to deny draws. Romania consider that a win for them in this position, and I'm inclined to agree with them.
Yeah, it does 2 other things as well. It means that next turn can be Tar Creeper, Armorsmith, Ravaging Ghoul. It also means they got to weave in another hero power. We normally talk about it with Hunter weaving in the damage, but actually Romania having to do the inverse of that. They're having to weave in the armor every single turn now because they know that a couple of pyros to the face is definitely on the cards and they need to stop that immediately.
Yeah, warriors are just reverse hunters, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
If you spell warrior backwards, you get hunter.
I could probably say it better backwards.
I was trying to find that joke in my head, and I was like, you know what, if I just set it up, then Neil will find it for me. And it worked perfectly.
Awesome.
That's just synergy right there.
There we go, guys. Synergy and old and stuff. Right, more armor coming down as predicted. Just going to gain the 4 armor and the 2 with the hero power weaved in again. Extra cards, and this is looking pretty good for Romania as the second armor smith comes off these card draws.
But I just, like, you know, I don't want to harp on this too much because, you know, like, let's live in the now and all that, but this is the kind of situation that I worry about the whole keeping quest thing, right? Like, that Sulfuras in hand, like, the quest has been completed. By keeping the quest, Romania have been 1 card down in hand the entire game, and they're just in a situation now where they're just scrambling to make plays that isn't play Sulfuras, because the play Sulfuras play will just lose them the game on the spot.
I think the downside of... So that is definitely true, everything you just said. The downside of getting rid of the quest is if you cannot win the game by attrition, which we believe you can, but if they feel they can't, then if Sulfuras in your bottom 8 or 10 cards, or if the quest is in your bottom 8 or 10 cards after you mulligan it, you never complete it.
Yes. Oh, it doesn't even have to be that deep. You don't have to play many taunts at all for it to be unactivatable in the deck.
And then you do only have that 1 win condition, which is basically fatigue.
Run you out of stuff.
And maybe they just feel not comfortable with that. They feel they'd rather play from a card behind for the whole game and at least make sure that on turn 23 they can play the Sulfuras and just get on with their lives.
Frost Nova in Thailand's deck, by the way, is not something that we've talked about. And it's, again, it seems to be that kind of nod to a defensive option expecting an aggressive lineup. There's Ice Barrier, there's Gluttonous Ooze in this deck as well. All of these cards in hand right now are huge whiffs in this situation that could be either higher value cards or more aggressive cards. But Ice Barrier, Frost Nova, Gluttonous Ooze, not cards that are auto-includes in Gunter Mage these days by any means, and it very much does look like a nod to the idea that Romania were just going to play a very quick, aggressive lineup and try and sweep this game out.
How ridiculous is it here to take... Oh, I was going to say Abomination, but Primordial Drake's there, which is just better. You can play Armor Smith, Primordial Drake next turn and just win the game, effectively. But yeah, this is interesting because Thailand is an emerging nation in Hearthstone. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They've had a major already. They've got another one coming up at some point, I believe. And RDU has to, or RDU and Romania, I keep calling it RDU, it's Romania have to give Thailand a certain amount of credit into...
Ardumania.
Yeah, that's actually, Radumania is what will happen if they win this match. But they have to have given Thailand a certain amount of credit to even pull the bait and switch.
Yeah.
They have to have given Thailand credit that they're going to tech against them. Against some people, you just don't even bother. You just go, well, I'm going to beat them anyway. But this isn't just credit to Romania. This is Romania giving credit to Thailand for being good enough to actually fall for it. And it's not even falling for it. I'd have definitely teched against Romania with them expecting them to go aggro all the way. And that's not enough.
Yeah, the taunts on board are fairly fragile, you know, like the plays can happen to make this Mana Worm start connecting with face, but the fragility of the taunts isn't really that big of an issue because every point of damage that's used to push through the taunts with that Armor Smith in play just means that the extra armor gain is going to pull them further out of range anyway, so... Again, I love the fact that Romania, even though you said we can play Armor Smith Primordial Drake on the following turn, Romania have just said, you know what, we'll just play it now. If another burn spell gets shot at this Armor Smith, that's about as much armor as I'm going to gain off it on the following turn anyway. Plus, then next turn, if it lives, I gain the 2 extra on top of that by being able to armor up after my Primordial Drake.
Something that I really enjoy about casting this particular meta is that those sort of things we talk about. You know, everything, even with a fewer cards than usual in hand, all of the plays have serious implications at every single step of the way.
And remember, each and every one of these games is massive for Romania. That's a cliche, it goes without saying in almost every series. Of course all the games matter, but Romania here don't just have to win the series, they have to win 3-1 and better. So every single win, while that counter for Thailand stays at 0, is worth its weight in gold to Romania.
Yeah, I mean, Game 2 of their second round was equally important, but they didn't know it. We know it now, which is what makes it important. They know exactly how important the game is, and it is rather important.
All the way back up to 18 now, and Again, like Sulfuras can now probably come down and win this game, but it's coming down and winning the game from a 1 position is the point, right?
Right.
I think you can tell where I come down on this argument. I'm not 100% sold on it, which is why I don't call people out when they keep the quest. But it just makes sense to me. I feel like when I see Quest Warrior lose this matchup, it's because they play Sulfuras and get burned down. When I see Sulfuras get played and Taunt Warrior still wins, it's because they're already in a 1 position and Sulfuras just ends the game. So for me, this is a no-quest matchup. But I know many, many good players disagree with me. There are 4 of them staring back at you on Team Romania right now.
It also beggars the question, if you're going to get rid of the quest in this format, where you know you're going to be playing against XYZ decks and you're playing it as a control deck, if you are going to throw the quest away, why play it at all? No, but why not play Control Warrior if you know you're going to be playing against a control matchup? Why play the quest in a Control Warrior? Why not just play an Asira or other such good stuff?
There is a thing with Quest Warrior where most of its best matchups, you know, the aggro druids, the hunters, and so on and so forth, are matchups where you throw the quest away. Right. That is a pattern that develops. So it is kind of a weird situation. I do totally get what you're saying, but it's, I don't know, the Control Warrior, the pure Control Warrior Fibonacci style is still yet to be proven in this metagame for me.
Yeah, I don't think you do too well in the mirror if you don't have the quest, for instance, obviously. Just thinking in the context of Hearthstone Global Games with the format there is here, you don't have to queue the Warrior if you're not getting a matchup you like, so you can play a Control Warrior without the quest a bit more often than, say, in a Conquest lineup where that would be crazy.
Flamestrike has been picked up now from Thailand. This is a card that would have been very useful on a couple of previous turns. The Armorsmith play on the previous turn that we were talking about as well. Another upside of that, I talked about the fact that it's kind of risk-free because if it eats burn, that covers the amount of armor gain you would have got on the following turn anyway. But it also plays fantastically around Flamestrike to just play it on that turn.
Right.
Because if that entire board was 4 health taunts. So if Flamestrike came out on that spot, the Mana Worm was connecting for at least 4. It was already 3, and then minions were going to push. So if Flamestrike got drawn there, you play the Armorsmith because, as I mentioned before, it has no downside, but it has a massive upside of healing you for 6 and giving you that 1 extra turn that you might need to mitigate that big extra push that Thailand might be able to make.
And to put that all in context as well, 6 is obviously a fireball, and you've seen how low Thailand have been on cards. If you just straight up cross out one of their cards, then that's a gigantic amount of armor. If you say 6 a bit quick, it doesn't sound that much, but actually it's crazy.
Ice Barrier coming into play now, giving Thailand effective 20 in this situation. Was necessary because 16 can be pushed directly and would pop the block just with the information that Thailand have, which is that there's a 4-4 on board, there's a 4-2 weapon in hand, and that 4-2 gives you an 8 damage hero power. So Ice Barrier, a necessary play there to protect their ice block for at least 1 more turn.
Thailand starting to run out of cards. There's 6 or fewer in that pack size. I don't know if we've seen a fireball yet. Definitely haven't seen them both. So there's a little bit.
We've seen at least one.
We've seen 1 volcanic potion. Yep. That's all. We suspect there might be 2. Thailand. We haven't seen Medivh, but are there any spells to go with it that are really going to be dangerous enough? Trakistar's been sat with his second execute in hand for forever, and now's the brawl as well, which just to prevent any accidents that may come from Medivh would be handy.
So Brawl and Execute, is this going to be the turn that we see Sulfuras come down as well to pop the ice block? Finally, just kind of, you know, sticking to that situation I was talking about before, where it can come down in a win in a 1 game. But no, still, Romania say, you know what, that's actually even more high risk than we need to take in this situation. We have won this game by exhausting our opponents out of resources.
And of course, I'm a crazy person. Medivh came off the dirty rat. Yep.
What did you say?
Medivh came off the dirty rat earlier.
What did you say in contrast to that?
That I'm a crazy person.
Oh, okay. Right.
In case you hadn't noticed. Romania taking the 1-0 lead, needing to win 3-0 or 3-1. Or as RDU succinctly put it, they need to win a best of 5 before their opponents win a best of 3. Only RDU could come up with that.
I think the word succinct means that you've actually boiled something down to less complexity. That's far more complex than just saying they needed to win 3-1 or better.
I agree.
Yeah,
but I was trying to be nice.
Thanks, Radu. He does have a way with words sometimes.
I mean, it's right.
It's true, yeah. I can't fault him for accuracy.
So, the first one in the books, and now What on earth did Thailand do about the second one? It's Druid. We've just seen a controlling warrior, Quest warrior, instead of a Pirates. Now this could be anything.
It could. I definitely agree with that. So, like, let's try and boil this down, right? If this wasn't going to be Aggro Druid, which is what I expect it to be from Romania.
Yep.
If it was the Jade Druid, you're looking at a Druid Mirror or a Priest on the other side. Now, you do not want to play Jade Druid into Priest, because Silence Priest is one of the worst matchups in the game for Jade Druid. You do probably don't want to play Jade Druid into Aggro Druid. I think Jade Druid does just fine against aggro decks like Pirate Warrior. It doesn't do quite so well against decks that can just constantly load up board states over and over and over again. So I suspect, just on the odds of what they'd be facing up against, because Druid was picked here, it is going to be an Aggro Druid, but I'm willing to be wrong.
Yeah, wow. Somebody clip that. Sottle is willing to be wrong.
I retract that statement. I am always and forever entirely unwilling to be wrong.
That's what I thought. Sottle's back, guys. Okay, we can carry on with the cast now. Yeah, and
where's my trophy?
Where is your trophy?
I think I left it over there.
Well, I didn't think you'd ever put it down. You've been carrying it around with you since you got here last night, just walking around. I got a trophy. I won something. I'm in trouble now.
Just my 3 UK national titles, top 10 in the world twice. My trophy cabinets.
What have I done?
Good.
What have I done?
Back to the game of Hearthstone at hand. It is going to be looking very much like the Aggro Druid coming out. Double Tar Creeper might lead you astray, but Tar Creeper is a card that has pretty much become a staple in Aggro Druid, and I think that we as a community need to give a special shout out to a man named Zalay on this, because I saw very, very early on Tar Creeper in Aggro Druid from Zalay, and I also saw Zalay being mocked for that inclusion. And it turns out Zalay was the prophet we needed all along, and Tar Creeper in Aggro Druid is just correct.
Are you willing to call out the mockers, or would you rather leave that
for... It was his Luminosity teammates.
Ouch.
Yeah. I need to be careful about calling things out about Muzzy these days.
Yeah, we all saw what happened when you tried that. It's just casually put you in your place by just winning.
It was all in good fun. They were playing Muzzy's. They were playing Zalay's decks on stream during the prep for the Red Bull Team Brawl, I think it was. And they were just like, "What the hell is Tar Creeper doing in your Aggro Druid?" It was just one of those kind of things. Zalay defended it, gave an excellent explanation, which of course is that Tar Creeper defends small token minions on board.
Right.
And Aggro Druid is a deck that's all about small minions and then applying buffs to those small minions.
Right.
If you're going to apply buffs to them, they have to live. Tar Creeper helps them live. It's a kind of a 3-step extension program to get to the point where Tar Creeper's actually good, but if you think about it hard enough, you get there.
I'll let you know next week.
All right.
We did see earlier Tar Creeper in Priest just sit there and fend off an entire army of Aggro Druid. It got to like 115 or something.
Right.
And if that Priest had been a Druid, it had loads of buffs going on, or even a Silence Priest, or whatever.
Exactly that. Just imagine we lived in a world where Priest had good cards, and then those small minions would have very, very quickly murdered the Aggro Druid opponent.
All right, so as with most aggro versus aggro mirrors, it's all about just getting the board early, and this Tar Creeper's looking interesting.
This Tar Creeper's looking pretty spicy, Lorinda. Coin Tar Creeper to defend this board state, and then innovate a Bittertide Hydra behind it even is a possible play. Alternatively, you can dump the Hydra right now, but it's dealing into a board state where a buff would be able to take care of it. You know, Bloodsail Corsair plus buff, or Patches plus buff, or Savage Roar would take care of it while dealing an enormous amount of damage to your own face. So I feel like getting the Tar Creeper out and then defending the Bittertide behind it is looking like the most promising line. But they'll also be considering that swipe. Because if you use the coin on the Tar Creeper and innovate on the Bittertide Hydra, you're then not swiping until a very honest turn 4, whereas you might feel like you need to react to this board state with the swipe 1 or 2 turns quicker than that.
Yeah, this could get out of hand very quickly next turn with the Bloodsail Corsair and, say, a Mark of the Lotus. We can see they have half that equation in their hand, and they're just going to go straight with the Bittertide and say, here we go. Be interesting to see if they choose to just ignore it. Not ignore it, but like just go really wide and say, hey, you can't take all this lot down.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are we just ignoring this?
We're ignoring this. Firefly, Flame Elemental, Bloodsail Corsair, everything face except possibly the 1-1 patches might go into the Hydra in this position.
And Swipe is pretty powerless, even if they had the coin or the Innovate.
Right.
And using...
Ooh.
It's still pretty powerless. I mean, it needs to be done or they lose. That's kind of important at this point.
They don't lose through target.
They don't lose immediately, but it's really close, right? I mean, just for instance, 21 damage going into the Hydra. So, Tar Creeper's just going to have to defend this board.
Disagree. Swipe is just going to come out here and just try and reduce some of this board state. RDU, you saw in the background, just gave a little bit of a wince there, but still plenty of board presence. The Hydra almost obligated to connect with Face there. Mark of the Lotus and Savage Roar means that each of these minions will be attacking 4, so Face will be the most damage in this position if they want to push through, but they can just hold the Savage Roar here and send 12 to Face by fully trading out the Bittertide Hydra. They're going to go Savage Roar instead.
One of the upsides of the Savage Roar is that the Face can take out the 1-2 if they want to, just to make sure this Hydra is just still isolated, because as long as that Hydra is isolated...
Oh, you can kill the Hydra here as well. I think that's totally fine. You push 6 instead of 8 by killing the Hydra in this spot if you choose to do that.
Yeah. You do mess up your board in case you draw another Savage Roar or another Mark of the Lotus, of course, but you definitely have to take down the 1-2, that's for sure. That's one of the ways you can lose this, I think.
Wow, Romania throwing out the round of applause already. They think they've got this one locked out, and then the faces drop temporarily as they see the Tar Creeper,
lethal.
But then they quickly work out. This still gets the job done. Druid of the Claw charge into the 3-5. 2-2 into the 3-5, and then 3 attacks for 3 damage each into the Hydra is exact lethal. That is 2-0, and this is one more win now for Romania to pull off the most improbable of comebacks. This was 2 series in a row where they had to win 3-1 or better. 3-1 or 3-0 back to back to recover from a position where I think probably you, and all of the other HGG casters, when they fell to their initial dismal opening record, said, all right, that's it for Romania. Job done. They're not going to recover from this.
Yeah, I did call it during the UK versus Thailand match that if Thailand did win that match, hang on, Romania have got to play Thailand. That's just how these interactions work, sometimes in groups, and I'm a bit of a boring geek when it comes to looking at groups.
Yes, you are. And I love you for it, Lorinda.
And yeah, thank you very much, sir. And yeah, that result there was the start of it. It was the UK versus Thailand, a match that Romania had no control over because of the position they'd got into.
Yeah.
2 or 3 things went their way, and it's like, oh, we can still do this. Let's get these wins in. But then they've still got to thrash people. They beat Peru 3-0. If that had been 3-1, they would now need to win this 3-0.
And now, for the first time in about 4 or 5 weeks, Romania are actually in a favoured position. They need to win 1 of 2 of the next 2 games.
That is absolutely insane. How have they got into this spot? I am going to just quickly remind you guys, if they do win this 3-0, I believe that Peru can catch them with 2 3-0s their own.
You said you weren't going to mention
No, but now we're there.
I know. We do need to point it out. It is just fact. Peru can win 3-0, 3-0, with one of those 3-0s being a clearly free 3-0 win over the United Kingdom at this point. The other team that they would have to beat 3-0 is the United States, which is, unfortunately, for yourself and me and Raven and the entire HGG casting team, who are representatives of the miserable country of the United Kingdom, the United States have been performing significantly better and seem like a much more difficult proposition to 3-0 in Peru's spot. But yes, we are getting very excited about this Romania comeback, but there is one tiny, minute, microscopic asterisk left to their qualification in this position.
Yeah, and that is just to tidy that up while we're waiting for the next game to start. That is, even though they lost the head-to-head, there's a tiebreaker ahead of that, which is who you beat. And they would have beaten the USA, which we've just done. So if they do beat the USA, that actually helps their tiebreakers. But let's not ruin it for Romania right now. Let's get on with this.
Tidecaller going first here. It's going to be Paladin versus Pirate Warrior. And Tidecaller War Leader going first. Yeah, the War Leader is a mulligan in that spot. With the coin, you can consider keeping it. But even then, if you're against an aggressive matchup, you're playing a 1-2 into your opponent's 1-drop and then aiming to use that as a platform to snowball War Leader. That doesn't seem overly likely.
It's also the second aggressive deck, so just the Warrior was the only curveball.
The only debate.
The only debate.
Yeah.
Subtle debating as always.
Look, we just came from APAC, all right? Like, debated becomes a thing when you're casting at 4 a.m.
It's a thing when I'm watching at 4 a.m. as well.
That's fair.
Definitely. All right, Thailand in a decent spot with this hand, though. The upgrade's going to help them to clear the board on turn 1 if they want to, which they might want to, but
just do it
don't want to blow away the coin. Yeah.
I'll just do it with patches instead, retain the 1-1. Coin Frothing Berserker, they have a good chance of just taking care of a 2-drop on the following turn with the remaining power in play, and then, you know, snowballing Frothing with the coin from here is a big win. But that 2-3 is a massive pickup, and it's a must-play, in my opinion, for Romania in this spot, because they cannot allow Pirate Warrior to coin 3-drop and snowball from this spot. The only coin 3-drop now that dominates this board completely is South Sea Captain. They're covered just a little bit better now against Frothing Berserker because they have that Bluegill Warrior to back up and take out the 4 health.
Yeah, there was no world where this was ever getting more value than just being a straightforward 2-3 River Croc. Sometimes stats are just better than battle cries.
Yeah.
And have to just do it, look after the board. Again, these aggressive matchups, pretty much that's what you have to do. Just count the numbers. Sounds easy.
It does, but honestly, like, aggressive mirrors are decided more often than not between turns 1 and 4.
Right.
And a lot of people don't like that. You know, they see that as a detriment, but what it does is it hyper-focuses the decision-making on the opening 3 turns. And these exchanges between two aggro decks, these are matchups where the very best aggro players have these first 1 to 4 turns in terms of probabilities, science, potential punishes, interactions between your cards and your opponents. They have these turns down to a science where no other matchup is really at that point yet. Because all the decisions are hyper-focused here. These turns are kind of at the solved point where maybe 5 years from now, the rest of the game might be as well.
Yeah, we saw it in the last game with that, just the early Bittertide Hydra, and Romania pretty much knew they'd won as soon as they saw it.
Right.
Whereas Thailand thought it was the right play to mess up their curve in that way. As soon as either you saw it, you're just like, right, let's go wide. He winced a bit at the swipe and then win the game.
Yep. Speaking of win the game, Frothing Berserker can often be game-winning in situations like this. True Silver is the natural check to it, but when you are dropping Frothing consolidated behind a further minion, and that minion will connect face twice in the time that True Silver Champion comes down to take care of the Frothing Berserker, that is an enormous win for you.
And all they can do now is clear up. Look at this. Blessing of Kings will be handy on the Bluegill if they get that far, but it's going to be so far away. And this repeated damage is just going to keep hitting in. Doesn't seem like there's going to be an easy way at all for Romania to deal with it. Maybe they can pick up a War Leader.
War Leader is about all I can see in this spot. Unless there is magical Wicker Flame Burn Bristles in the deck naturally, because of course not enough mana in this position to pick up a Stonehill and then play a Wicker Flame afterwards.
The quality would buy some time, but I don't think it's enough on its own.
Agree. Naga Corsair coming down here just means that Bloodsail Corsair is going to connect a 3rd time because the True Silver will be mandated to go into the 5-4 in that spot. So this Bloodsail Raider is just doing so much work in this spot, and True Silver just being 1 minion too slow in this scenario.
Yeah, plenty of damage there on the board, and Romania, even if they do pick up the right thing, are still going to have work to do, but they only have 2 or 3 outs to even keep this game going. A different look on the faces right now as they're becoming aware it's going to come all down most likely to one more game. What's coming here? Ouch. Rallying Bay putting these decks for consistency, but unfortunately when you have 2 weapons, it's not the sort of consistency you need.
And RDU just in a miserable position now. A turn away from the Bluegill Warrior Blessing of Kings that would actually be able to get him a tempo trade on the board. And just begs the question of what he's doing in the meantime. Is it just a tempo Megasaur to try and occupy Thailand for a turn here? Try and maybe bait them to send some damage into that 5-4 and then try and swing the board on the following turn with Bluegill on Blessing of Kings?
How about Cold Light Seal and Hero Power gives you something to Blessing of Kings and keeps back the Murloc just to go a little bit wide in case you can stabilize?
Possible, but it feels worse because the equipped weapon, I believe, is currently 3 attack.
Right.
Meaning that just the majority of that board state gets overwritten already. Are you just going to go with the Rallying Blade here? So this is just saying, hey, I'm a mile behind in this game right now. So I'm just going to rely on this Megasaur to actually, you know, hit taunt on 2 or 3 Murlocs, maybe at some magical point on this game to try and find a way out.
And I'm going to draw Ragnaros very soon and not die in 3 turns.
If it's even in there.
Yeah, if it's even in there. But the play seems to imply he feels he's got some health to play with.
Sure.
In the ideal world where everything falls into place, which is where they're living right now.
Greenskin's a massive pool.
Right. Because as you say, with a Cold Light Seer there, I mean, Ragnaros doesn't seem likely, but the play seems to imply that maybe they think they can come back.
We did the opening series that we cast had a 6-1 drop Cold Light Seer Paladin deck that also had Curator, Primordial Drake, and then presumably, because of Curator, Primordial Drake, Rag Light Lord as well. You can really just mix and match any combination of Paladin cards you want these days, it seems.
I have to try that. Last Kaleidosaur, here I come.
Apart from that one.
Apart from that one. Okay, so no health gain when they attack in this time. They eat all of the damage if they kill the Raider. That's 4. The Bluegill getting Blessings will take out a Naga Corsair. But they're going to be on 10 damage, and Thailand just have a handful of more damage.
I wonder.
You can play the True Silver, but then your Bluegill doesn't get any work done.
I do wonder about the Rallying Blade play on the previous turn. I'd like to get into Romania's head and see exactly what their long-term plan here, but it felt like to me getting the Megasaur to just occupy the board might have given them a better fighting chance in this spot. Of course, they can now Megasaur the Bluegill this turn, but that doesn't seem like it's going to be a winning combination. So maybe the Megasaur coming down just to occupy a turn sooner would have given them a slightly better platform to leverage from.
All right, although getting Poisonous from this Megasaur now has at least done this piece of work, so that may be one of the outs that they foresaw as an option, but oh dear.
That's lethal.
That is a lethal amount of damage coming in, and Romania are going to basically go down to the final game of the set, even though it isn't.
Correct, yes. This one coming up now is for all the marbles. Thailand do not have to win this series to qualify. They just have to get to a 2-game score. So this next game coming up now is the most important one of the series. The remainder afterwards, if Thailand pull back to 2-2, is a relative formality. So this game coming up now is where we will focus in on, and it's this one game that it's all come down to. And again, just an incredibly implausible position for Romania to even be in this spot in the first place.
Yeah, just getting themselves into what is let's call it a 50-50 for all intents and purposes right now. And just getting here is something that would have definitely snapped your arm off to get a few weeks ago. It's like, I can't believe they're here. I don't know if they're going to do it, though. There's options of Shamans and Priests, and Rogues and Shamans.
It's going to be Shaman versus Rogue. This is potentially bad news for Romania if it's not an aggressive Shaman. If it is an aggressive Shaman, then it's potentially very, very good news for them. Although, I've been playing a ton of Miracle Rogue over the past couple of days, and I actually am a big fan of Miracle Rogue in the Evolve Shaman matchup. I think they can actually pick apart the board very, very well. Quest Rogue, on the other hand, once there's 3 or 4 minions on the board and you don't have Prep Vanish, you basically just die to Bloodlust the entire game.
Yeah, I was going to say that about that matchup, but tell us more about the Miracle matchup, because we don't see as much of that. Is it just backstabs and eviscerates?
Right.
Old school stuff?
You know, combination of backstab, coin SI with and without the actual natural coin, because you have counterfeit coins. Razor Petal Lasher is actually hard for them to deal with if they don't have Flame Tongue Totem. It threatens to take out 2 of their dudes a lot of the time. Plus, you generate the 1 damage Petal that can then take out even just a Primal Fin token or a 1/1 totem if that comes out. Plus, as with always with Miracle Rogue these days, you have to add in the percentage of games where the Rogue Gods just hand you the Edwin. And then unless they have Devolve on turn 2, that's game over.
Double Devolve, though, in basically all of these decks, so it's a way around it for sure. But not something you're going to keep, because you're probably still expecting Cavern Rogue at this point in proceedings.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about the Miracle Rogue matchup unless we do see it come up, because I would suspect it to be the Quest Rogue that's coming out here. So just to focus in on that matchup, the problem is just a distinct lack of AoE. Then when decks play big aggressive minions against them, Cavern Rogue has an opportunity to stop that because they have things like Glacial Shard. When it's just a bunch of 1-2s and 2-3s across the board, that's a lot harder to deal with because they don't have Fan of Knives. Blade Flurry just isn't a card anymore. So as soon as there is 3 or 4 individual bodies on the board, then suddenly Flame Tongues and Bloodlust just threaten to kill you for the rest of the game. So your job is to either get the craziest Firefly start you can possibly imagine and actually gain some board control, or just try and hit your quest as fast as you possibly can.
Well, you did ask if it's an aggressive Shaman deck, and my goodness, is it aggressive? We've even got the weapon thrown in for good measure there in that mulligan, the Twilight Hammer thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They mulliganed away Hammer of Twilight?
Yeah.
Okay, so we saw one spicy Kranich deck come out earlier, which was the Secret Hunter.
Right.
Kranich, in his successful lineup, also had a Bloodlust Shaman deck that was not Evolve Shaman. He'd cut Doppelgangster and Evolve for cards like Hammer of Twilight, Fire Elemental, and Kalamos. It wasn't an elemental deck. It didn't really. Right. It didn't have like Servant of Kalamos or any of that kind of synergy. It was aggressive Bloodlust Shaman with burst damage and late game.
So, in the context of this match, a bit of a win and a bit of a loss. You get the hammer, but you lose the Bloodlust, which is obviously a...
No, the Bloodlust is still there.
Oh, it's still there?
The Bloodlust is there. The Evolve is gone. The Doppelganger
Oh, so you just get rid of all the garbage in terms of this matchup. So you're in a good spot if you're Romania, assuming it is that deck. But like you say, we've already seen one Kranich deck. Why wouldn't we see another?
Yeah. But I mean, RDU himself has been a long-time proponent of Aggro Shaman. So, you know, this could just be an RDU build of Aggro Shaman or from any of the other members. You know, aggressive Shamans is not a deck that's unique to Kranich. It's just interesting that, you know, a day or two after Raven and I have returned from APAC, we've seen what look very much like a couple of Kranich's weird, successful decks popping up in this tournament.
And, in a good spot here, Romania as well, in good hands. Moody's been around a long time. He was top 8 in DreamHack Bucharest in 2014. Oof. So this is a man who has probably played enough Hearthstone to play this one pretty well under guidance from his teammates as well, of course.
Back when you were merely in your 50s.
1-1.
Oh, God,
you gonna tick that off yet?
Where's the page where I wrote them all down? I forgot all about it. Jeez.
One day, young man, one day you'll be my age if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And then it'll all come back to haunt you. There'll be some whippersnapper caster as we get on with the game of Hearthstone.
I've never recovered from the day that you said to 16-year-olds we're the same age. Like, that's just so devastatingly true to me that I kind of gave up.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's 16-year-olds looking at us old guys. We're just old guys.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thailand here, obviously going to fight for this board as long as they can. They can't afford that Bloodlust to get out of control. But Glacial Shard in some matchups can cut the mustard. It can just keep blocking stuff off for you. But against this particular deck, not so much mustard cutting is going on.
Yeah, and I like the sequencing from Romania in this spot as well. They conceded the board for one turn, which seems like a miserable thing to do against a deck that you're trying to swarm at all times. But they knew exactly what was going to happen. They played a 1-2 into a 1-2. They know 100% of the time in that position, the rogue is going to dagger and swing the dagger. That means then Bloodsail Corsair plus Patches coin the Primal Fin totem, then immediately swings the board by, what, a grand total of, what, 3, 5, 6, 8 stats as well as clearing the board? That's a solid Hearthstone turn.
Yeah, your opponents used 2 mana to kill a 1-2.
Yeah.
Which cost you 1 mana and gave you a card. It seems like a decent trade-off, and already this board is getting out of control, and it's only going to get worse for Thailand. The one saving grace for them at the moment is Romania currently don't have any massive damage coming in. It's all going to be done in bits and pieces for the time being.
Mana Tide is a big deal, though. When I've played this matchup, having Mana Tide early, even though it's not aggressive, like, you feel like you just want to play damage and push damage every single turn, right? But actually, Mana Tide as an investment actually turns into more damage over the course of the game because you hit your Jade Lightnings, you hit your Bloodlusts. So even though you're playing a 0-3 and not pushing much on the turn you play it, it actually turns out to be a very, very useful card in the matchup. But now, with the board state that's being faced down, it might be that Flame Tongue Totem and or Maelstrom Portal is more appropriate to the situation.
Right, because Romania aren't just going to cakewalk this. They do have to make sure that Thailand have no minions to deal with. They have to do things that you have to do against Cavern Rogue. At least try and stop them doing the quest. And so, not wasting that much damage. Like you say, not getting this Mana Tide down would be a bit of a pain for them. I think because they've got the Flame Elemental as well, it's going to be okay.
Just going to trade out here. 2 damage will go, 3 will go to face. Flame Elemental will come down on the right-hand side of the board, most likely, since the left-hand side is going to populate itself. And then there is a good chunk of damage being represented. And now already you can see exactly what I was talking about. It will be Romania's turn 4 next turn. But if there were a Bloodlust in hand, if 2 turns pass and this board sticks around, Bloodlust is going to be lethal for every single turn of the game from now on.
Right, because this lot is not getting dealt with. Thailand have their own problems, which is dealing, actually just getting the quest completed. Obviously the Shadow Step's one part of that. But any time you set out to complete with Novice Engineer, you are in a bad position in terms of doing it quickly.
It's so slow. It sounds so bizarre. It's like, oh, it's a 2-mana card. It's too slow to complete the quest with. But it just is in so many matchups. The Shadow Step, of course, speeds it up. But it's whether they think they want to go Flame Elemental here because they're already on 2 on Flame Elemental. Yep. Once they play this one in hand, they are on 2 on Flame Elemental. So it's a matter here for Thailand of where they want to go down their quest path at this point. But the quest isn't even the most important thing. The important thing is finding a prep vanish or just a vanish to be able to find an extra turn in this game somewhere, because even with a quick quest activation from here, they're going to lose the race to Moody's clock right now.
Yeah, and this clock is not going to get... I mean, he's going to have one turn where maybe he whiffs here for a moment, and then it's all going to be full-out craziness, because those you don't miss very often as a Shaman. With Mana Tide, like you say, in hand as well, you're just going to miss very few times. But this is going to be a pretty quick completion here.
It is. Since the Brewmaster was picked up off the Novice Engineer, that does put them in a very, very good spot for quest completion. But speaking of a very good spot, Romania now essentially have the full board for the rest of the game with Maelstrom Portal this turn. One thing they do have to be very careful about, though, is board space, because they will want to get a Mana Tide down on the board. So if they just go Maelstrom Primal Fin this turn, there's a good chance they never have space on the board to be able to do that until Thailand allows them to.
Yeah, it's something I didn't see until I played a few games. It's like you can actually just make yourself like completely strangled, where you just can't play anything so easily when the Primal Fins go unchecked. It's obvious when it's told, it's obvious when you have a think about it, but until you played a couple of games, it's a mistake that happens, because your minions are actually kind of garbage on their own.
Romania, Neil, are not stupid like you. They see the lines and they cleared out space on their board. Instead of using the Maelstrom Portal, which would populate their board further, they traded out minions, they developed the Mana Tide Totem. Moody knows, Romania knows, they need to cycle their deck towards that Bloodlust right now.
And it's really weird, because normally the 5/5s, when they start happening, just clear up and take care of everything. Here they're not going to do it so much. Of course, there is a Murloc in play. The Primal Fins are Murlocs, so that the Crab's going to at least slow down very slightly. What's going on? No, you can't.
Unlucky.
It summons the Murlocs. It doesn't actually be a Murloc.
Yeah. Job's done. So they have actually gained some semblance of board control, although not particularly, since there is a Flame Tongue Totem in play, which basically changes all the rules as to who has board control. But they have slowed down some of the damage for now, but double Mana Tide can potentially just go absolutely buck wild here and just get Moody and Romania all the way through their deck here. Find those Bloodlusts incredibly quickly, and incredibly quickly is the key word right now, because with Quest activated, Romania will know they are running out of time, not only in this game, but in this series, because this game is must win. They cannot go to 2-2 in this series. That will be their chances of qualification over on tiebreakers.
And they've got a difficult decision here. Usually the problem goes to the opposition as to which totems should be left up or which ones should be removed. Romania actually have that problem here. Which ones should we trade away? Do we want to have the ongoing Murlocs for the Primal Fin so that when we do get the Bloodlust we win, or do they want to have the short-term or medium-term gain of having this Flame Tongue on the board? They're going to have to give something up here. They're not. They're just going to play everything out.
And go J-Claws. Sticking with one Mana Tide for now, which is fine. They'll continue to cycle, and they'll know as well exactly how many cards they have left, so they'll know their percentages on drawing that bad boy right there. So now on the following turn, we have 18 from Bloodlust, 21, 24, 25.
Stop it, they're already dead.
27 damage represented. Does that mean they can lose this 1-1 to the dagger? That will be 15, 18, 21, 23. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Especially as he just gets buffed anyway. The dagger only does 1 damage, so... Looking grim indeed. Moody's hovering over the Bloodlust already. Let me play it, let me play it.
Play it.
And... Of course, Thailand don't know the timing of the Bloodlust. They've got to carry on just trying to reduce board and trying to find a way to win.
Right.
How on earth do you go about doing that?
Well, that's the thing, right? They're planning out Novice Engineer or Mimic Pod right now and just considering the various outs. Like, what can Mimic Pod double up on that allows us to get out of this? Like, South Sea Deckhand, for example. That pulling patches and then me having 2 South Sea Deckhands plus a patches to trade through this board. Does that help me get there, or do I want to go Novice Engineer first and find the solution that way? They did go Novice Engineer first. They got a big whiff on that Vanish. Crystal Core is complete and active in hand, but the big smile comes out from Moody from the most improbable of situations. Back-to-back 3-1 wins have meant that Romania are pushing on through here.
Absolutely insane, and look at the relief there from Moody, and Thailand somehow don't look too disappointed. This has been coming for a while somehow. I think everybody's sort of been smelling Romania getting through to the next phase, except maybe Peru. And yeah, looks like they've got it done from 0-3. And it wasn't just 0-3. I mean, they'd been battered into 0-3. It looked just completely all over.
It did. And there's an old sporting cliche about, like, it seems like their name is already on the cup, right? Yeah. Meaning, like, everything, even though they're in this dire situation, everything is going their way. It seems like it's just destiny at this point. And for the last 3 weeks or so, that has been the Romania story. They needed everything to go right for them after they put themselves in a terrible position early on with the early losses. And everything just did work out perfectly.
Something to add to that, though, they helped it work out perfectly. They still kept going to RDU's place every week, despite the fact they thought, well, we're out of this, but let's go through the motions, let's do it properly. Let's not just give up and all stay at home. I think there was one week where RDU actually had the people come over his house, even though he was leaving on a plane to go elsewhere 6 hours later.
Wow, okay.
So it's like, come over, you can stay now, you go home early, I'm getting on a plane. That sort of thing. I think that was week 3 when they were already 0-2.
That's awesome.
So they've stayed with that all the way through, and if you've only got a small chance, you know, go for your small chance.
Yeah, and it's paid out beautifully for them, as mentioned. And again, I'm super happy for RDU in particular. Of course, achievement for Romania. Let's not paint this as being all about RDU, but I think him on a massive upswing now, like from where it was early on. If you go back to before he qualified for Spring Championships, you know, Romania were looking down and out of the championship of Hearthstone Global Games. There were still big question marks about, oh, why hasn't RDU done it in HCT? Suddenly, that has all flipped on its head, and RDU is just on top of the Hearthstone world, right?
Yeah, and we're going to get to talk to Moody this time around and see what he has to say about that incredible win. Moody, congratulations.
Hello.
Almost there, I think.
Yes.
Basically, barring crazy
barring
results.
miracles. Yeah.
Obviously, I know you live a long way from RDU, but how does it feel for you guys to all get through this together?
Oh, we feel amazing after the first 3 games. We felt that we were incredibly unlucky, but now I guess the RNG came to us where it mattered the most. So we are incredibly happy.
Yeah, awesome. I know that RDU's been the spokesman for the team, but I know you all together, you were all incredibly unhappy about the America loss in particular, so maybe get another go at those guys now.
Yeah, I think we were unlucky about all of our losses.
Right.
But I don't think America was the worst. I think Netherlands actually was the the worst of all, because we felt really confident and we had really good matchups, and yeah, we got Golakad.
Yes, you did. How difficult was it for you being like the one guy that was separate, right? Because the other three guys play together at RDU's place. Do you feel like you were still like integrated into the communication? Like, was it harder for you to make your voice heard?
I think it was a bit harder. If I lived in Bucharest, it would be way easier. We had some small problems with communication, especially against England, where I played against George C. In the middle of the match, it was the match Druid against Freeze Mage. Right. In the middle of the match, I couldn't hear the guys.
Wow.
And instead of just focusing on the match, I was just trying to repair the communication between us. And I played really, really sloppy. But in the end, yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, you learned from that and got them through today at least. And you must feel great being the guy who gets Romania through to almost certainly the next phase now.
Yeah, we are almost certainly. I think the only out that we don't qualify is that Peru wins against America like 3-0. It's something like really hard to happen.
Our understanding is that Peru have to win 3-0, 3-0 from this point for you to like not make it. So, like, with that in mind, will you be watching Peru's remaining matchups, or are you just going to shut your eyes and hope from this point?
No, we will watch and pray.
Okay.
Okay, well, the best of luck and thanks for talking to us, and probably speak to you in stage 2. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. I hope we will be able to speak again.
Awesome. Wow.
What a story, right?
Yeah, really cool. And interesting to hear that communication thing did matter in one of the other matchups where it's like, because anyone who's ever lost any conversation whilst playing a game, it's just so hard to try and get everything back online and play the game to the best of your ability at the same time.
This was a crucial turn, honestly, in this matchup early on as we go through the tail of the tape for this series. Double Dirty Rat in hand. Neither of them were played in the early game because they had no way to destroy a big minion that came out of it. Thailand on the previous turn could have held on to a Mana Worm to mitigate their exposure to Dirty Rat, and it was the Medivh that got pulled as a byproduct of all those decisions lining up. The Slam Execute was able to take it out, and then Thailand were just left without a win condition, really.
Yeah, and like you said, keeping that quest, something I didn't ask about. I knew it was going through your mind, but we'll challenge that on social media at some point, I'm sure.
Yep.
And then from then on, just no win conditions, no cards, nothing to do. This game was interesting. I felt that Thailand may have botched this slightly at the start. I understand what went through their minds, but...
You liked Coin Tar Creeper, Innovate Hydra as well?
Yeah, I think that getting the Hydra out, this was always going to happen. I don't think this is a hindsight thing. I think this was very, very likely to happen.
I completely agree. And you can see the preemptive joy that went through Romania's minds there. They knew they had this locked up a couple of turns in advance. They saw the lines. This was our, seems like, customary Pirate Warrior beatdown for the series. It seems like when we see Pirate Warrior in this tournament, which isn't all the time, it comes out in a very clean spot for Pirate Warrior and is able to take very consistent games.
Yeah, again, and that is because they have the choice of when to play it. You pair it with something that beats all the other decks, and then you just get a Pirate Warrior win whenever it crops up.
Yeah, and then the Bloodlust Shaman just ending the game in the manner it tends to against Rogue, where it just has one too many minions on board that Rogue can never choose to deal with. So Rogue just has to give up and ignore the board state, shut their eyes and say they just hope they don't get Bloodlust. And if the Bloodlust comes out, it's game over.
Now they've got to shut their eyes and hope that Peru don't win on Thursday night. That one will be brought to you by Cora and Rob, I believe, when they take on the United States. Here is the group as it stands. You can see there that Romania on -1, Peru can get to 0. I think they can afford to lose one game of their next 2 matches because they do have better tie breaks if they do beat the United States.
Oh, really? So they can go to 9 and 10 as well and still be through?
Yeah.
What you're telling. Interesting. All right.
So they've got a little tiny bit of leeway in winning 6 games of 7 in Hearthstone.
Yeah, but of course, the misery of the United Kingdom now flailing away in 5th place in that group. It was not supposed to be. And unfortunately, I'm caught on camera saying the words, "The UK always win." at the start of this broadcast, tomorrow's broadcast, the week after that, the week after that. I'm sure I will live that down very, very quickly, and no one will rub it in my face.
But when it comes to winning cups, there can be only one winner, Sottle, and you've got that covered this weekend. I know you're very happy about it.
Hey, but yeah, congrats to Romania. That was, you know, the big drama series of the day. We still have several fantastic series lined up with plenty of stuff on the line to go, so don't go anywhere. But again, congrats to Romania.
Yep, next up, Greece versus Hong Kong. Greece started 0-2 as well, and if they win, they're through. So another comeback story could be coming up.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.